So, yes, we are live and good afternoon. It's 2 p.m. You are welcome to the cathedral. My name is Wendy Ologe, and I'm the founder of the Intentional Parent Academy. The Intentional Parent Academy is an academy for parents where we teach parents how to parent. Yes, if you think that you just need to parent by just assumption, then you might get it wrong. And at the end of the day, you will regret why you parented the way you parented. That's why the Intentional Parent Academy is there for you. So if you're thinking, I'm confused about parenting, I don't know what to do, I don't know where to go, you have found resources to help you to actually go on your journey. I like the way my father says it. After reading my book, Connect to Correct, my father said to me, I wish there was something like this in our time that really gave us a direction of what it is that we needed to do when it comes to parenting. I am so proud of what you're doing. And that got me thinking. I'm sure that a lot of us are going to also have, children question what we have done if we have not done what is right. And a lot of the times, they would question it. Sometimes you might not have even known that there's something like this. And that's why we're sharing with you. That's why we're coming live every Tuesday, making sure that you learn what you should learn to parent. My name is Wendy Ologe, and I'm the founder of the Intentional Parent Academy. Today, we're looking at why every child needs to have independent thinking skills. This topic is very dear to me. Last week at the webinar, I taught the parents the skills you need to actually learn independent thinking, for a child. That's for the parents in our academy. So, and it was a very profound session, just for the others and even for me. The independent thinking child is something that I have been talking about for the past 2 years. I remember that when I started talking about why can't children talk to you? Why can't children be seen? Why can't a child be able to say no? Why do we label disobedient? Why do we label it, as, outright no, as an outright disobedience? Why can't children be allowed to think? What is the thing about not allowing children think? And I started to do research, and I found many of the reasons, or most of the reasons, why children are being molested is because they were not raised to think for themselves. Oh, it has to be mommy, it has to be daddy. And I found that that's why we're having increasingly 30-year-olds stay in their parents' house and they are being fed. I can't get it. That's why we're having increasingly people who can't take decisions on their own, because we're raising children that we're spoon feeding. I like how we actually go about it and say, oh, for those of us who were raised in the 90s and in the 80s, some of us were raised, born in the 80s, raised in the 90s. Some of us will want to come and say, things like, oh, our parents were better off, we think better. But that's not true. Our generation aren't even thinking, better either anyway. The problem is, the problem I have today is that it's become worse. Now, that is my challenge. It's become worse today because now we're raising children who are not just unable to think. We're also raising children who are entitled, even though they can't think. So our generation had a bit of not being entitled. Yes, there are a lot of people who couldn't think, who couldn't make decisions, but at least I can see that it was a generation that wasn't as entitled. But however, unfortunately, we're now raising people who are both entitled, irresponsible, and people who cannot take up challenges. So you're welcome here. You can see that this topic is hot, 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 hot in my head. All right. For the first time, I wrote a book that is going to be the biggest in volume because I kept writing how to raise an independent thinking child. I kept writing on that book. I kept putting, stuff on that book, researches, experiences, and all of that. And it wasn't ending. At some point, I had to tell myself, you know what? I'm going to stop so that this book will get out there. And then we continue to put our thoughts as we go, further. Just before I came live, I said something that we cannot cram our way out of poverty. You see, all of this, oh, your children need to come first, come second, come third. Don't get me wrong. These are not bad in itself. But if that is the only thing you're concerned about, then you are actually on the wrong route, because you might end up raising what I will call a foolish virgin. And unfortunately, when you ask parents, what kind of child do you want to raise? You're going to find out quite a number of us now watching me. If I say, do you want to raise an obedient child? The first thing you're going to tell me is, yes, I want my children to be obedient. I want my children to be good. And while I was writing that book, Raising the Independent Thinking Child, I said, goodness is not a skill. And that's why we're finding good people, in quotes, who suffer because they are unskilled. All right. So if you're just joining me, we are looking at why every child needs to be, to have independent thinking skills. What are the skills? Why do they need it? All right. In my book, I wrote about 20 tools that you need to raise independent thinking children. And then I wrote about 16 to 17 skills that your children will need to build to become independent thinkers. It's a whole lot of work, and independent thinking starts the day you give birth to a child. You give birth to a child. That's the way you start. That's the day you begin to raise independent thinking children. Let me see where you are joining me from. I am streaming live from the capital city, Abuja. And if you're joining me from any part of the world, let me see the comment in the comment section, and let me see you hit the like button if you already charged by this few minutes that we have started this conversation. Let me see you also say that you have invited someone to come and watch with you. Today, I was listening to somebody share her review about how she got in contact with the TIP Academy. And one of the things she said that struck me was, I don't even know who sent me your link. And all of a sudden, I found that this is the thing that have, solved almost all my problems in life. And just look at me. Imagine that person didn't send it. All right. Thank you so much. I can see T connecting from Abuja. I can see Esther Abuja. We have a lot of Abuja people like me. I can see Benin. I can see Ghana. Margaret Keynes. I see you. I see Ghana. I see Esther from Maldives. I see Mina. All right. And so I posted something about bleaching children, and I was asking the question, why are we bleaching children? The WHO says 70% of African women are bleaching children. And I wrote, something about an article about Ghanaian women. And all of these things come from the place of not thinking, of course. And somebody said, why am I calling Ghanaian women? And I said to the person, the major focus is even on Nigerian women. 70%, that's a lot. Using skin likeness, skin stuff and all of that, and then rubbing it on these children. Thank you so much for joining me. All right. Somebody said I am overcharged, and I am watching. Somebody is watching from Swaziland. Somebody is watching from Akwa Ibom, from Saren, Yenagoa. Why would parents bleach children for God's sake? Oh, that's part of the conversation, all right, that we're having. So let's get into it already. I am very, very excited, because a huge part of our curriculum in the inner circle, focuses on raising independent thinkers. And for me, every human being should be raised to think. All right? Every human being should be raised to think. Now, why do you need to raise your child who would have independent thinking skills? Number one of the things that you need to do. Now, let me share the downside, all right? Let me share the downside of raising people who can't think. Then I will now tell you why you must raise people who can think. Now, one of the first things that you need to note is that a child's formative years play a very vital role in shaping an independent thinker. So if you're raising your child and your child is 0, now, this is the best time to start raising a child who can think independently. There are tools that you can use to raise an independent thinker. All right? Now, advancement, innovations, that is the only possible, it's only possible because children who are raised that are not followers, that's a result of innovation. So when people ask me, do you want to raise children? What's your idea of a successful child? Because for us, success means, in parenting, means a child who just follows. That's not success. Because even the Bible says, train up a child in the way he should go, not the way you should go. So the moment you are raising your child in the way you want that child to go, you have failed on that mandate. Because there's a way that child should go. Now, when the way that child should go must not necessarily be your way. And when the child begins to go their way, or the way God has wanted them to go, you fight it. You call them disobedient. You tell them that, oh, they are not following, your footstep and all of the things that we tell them. And then we think that obedience is the end game when it comes to parenting. No, it's not. Raising a good child is not the end game. Is it good? Yes, I love good children. I love children who can, follow instructions and all of that and all of that. But if your aim, the only thing you're looking at is raising children who can follow, then you have failed. Just follow you. You have failed on that mandate. Because if you're going to raise somebody who will be able to become from themselves, then they will need to, do it outside, in quote, of you. You are a guide to finding them, not a mini you. Not a mini you. And a lot of the times we're trying to create mini me. We even, do all of that and do mini me online. Don't get me wrong, please. Those things are not wrong. I do that. All right. I'm saying that that's not what your, focus must be on. Your focus must be on raising children who can think. When you ask me, do you want to raise an obedient child? Our definition of obedient is a child who follows like a zombie. I do not want to raise an obedient child. I want a child who can think. Do you know why? Because a lot of the times, even what you call obedience, it's even wrong in itself. What you call obedience is do as I say. What you call obedience is the infallibility narrative in parenting. The narrative that says that a parent is always right and can never be wrong. That is a wrong narrative. The narrative that says that a child is never right. A parent is always right. And that's what I call the infallibility narrative. Where we say, because I am the parent. So you must do my bidding just because I am the parent. And unfortunately, we're having children who are now beginning to question. So even when you don't raise your child to be an independent thinker, the children are beginning to question because of the access to the kind of information that is all out there. It's an information era. So you can no longer parent your children the way you like. Or you can no longer parent your children the way it is you think you know. I was listening to one of, a parent in the inner circle, a grandma. She's from Trinidad and Tobago, and she's about 75, and she said something to me. She said, the styles that I've used are actually so outdated, and I know it. And if I stay there, I lose out in times. So if I must become relevant to my children, become relevant to my grandchildren, then I must begin to learn. It struck me that until you actually leave this world, you're going to continually, learn, think, and be able to actually move. So innovation is as a result of independent thinking children, not obedient to children. Yes. When you think about most of the innovations that have, thrilled the world, think about it. How did they come about? Many of them came from what we call disobedience, in quote. I like to put in quote because I am not for, putting up all of that, or you need to, a child must not obey, kind of. No. That's not what I'm teaching you. And before you run off with, I just listened to her. She said the children should not obey. Please be careful. That's not what I said. And that's why it's very dangerous to copy display. I've said that before. So what you see is display. If you want to really learn what it is that we're talking about, then you need to pay attention to the process and then learn how the process must work. So do not copy display. Do not come here and come and say, I was listening to her, and then she now said our children should not obey us. That is not what we're teaching. Very key. Just like people run off with, the conversation about discipline, and they say, they told us not to discipline our children because we said to you that hitting a child is not discipline. That doesn't mean that you should not discipline your children, because discipline is a core in your parenting journey. I am anytime for discipline, and you can't be my child and not understand discipline. It's not possible, because I am a disciplined person myself. So discipline is not in the way you hit your child or not hit your child. That's an example. Discipline is in the structure that you create in your home. So imagine you're structureless. And I've worked with many parents. And the first few months we work with, there's no structure in your life. And yet you come out and you actually boldly say, oh, I turned out okay. I'm very disciplined. Nigerians are very disciplined. We're one of the most indisciplined people, around really. We're the ones that will go, circumvent processes, look at things and do it, in another way and all of that. So I just wanted to clear that air so that we are not running off with the narrative that, oh, what it is that she's telling us is that you just want to, she's telling us not to raise children who obey. Another point is that the school does not necessarily build independent thinkers. Again, I'm not saying don't send your children to school because my own children are in school too. I need to be debunking all of those things as I'm saying it because I've seen a lot of narrative out there. I am saying that independent thinkers, because the school follows a teach to test method, it doesn't really raise people who think, outside of the structure. Now, people say allow children to think outside of the box. I tell the parents in the inner circle there's no box. Why are children being taught to think outside of the box? Where is the box? Who kept the box? There's no box. Let your child be able to think. There's no limitation to thinking. So we should never limit thinking. The moment we begin to limit thinking, then it stops to be thinking. All right. So what you need to do, there's something you need to do to actually be able to help your children to think. You need to redirect them. You redirect them to, thinking. You need to teach them how to think, not what to think. How to think. There's a how to think. When you teach the process of the how to think, your children will think right. But when you teach what to think, they are going to be limited to their creative side of their lives. Now, because school follows a teach to test method, where there is failure and success, there's a place for it. But now that brings it back. You now have the responsibility as a parent to be able to raise a child who is an independent thinker. You need to now raise a child who is an independent thinker. How do you begin to raise a child who is an independent thinker? It starts from you. It starts from day one. I've seen quite a number of parents who have issues making decisions as adults. Now, let's take something like decision-making skills because they are independent thinking skills. Now, when we don't encourage and teach our children to be independent thinkers, all right, what happens is that they take on the herd mentality. Somebody help me write in the comment section. Herd. H-E-R-D, sorry. H-E-R-D. And don't expect me to pronounce it like Oyibo. I'm not one. I learned English, just like you and I. H-E-R-D. And that's why when people say, oh, the Nigerian, slang, I love the way the Nigerian English is so innovative. I just love it. And who says that we can't create our own English language? There's no limitation, really. So these days, we're now beginning to put up, words that are entering the dictionary because, a few people are beginning to think. Head mentality, thank you. So when you don't teach your children, to be thinkers, they take on the head mentality and they follow the crowd. They follow the crowd. How heads are. When a cow moves in one way, I don't know if you live in the north, like I do, being, to all the states in the north. When you're going, you just see a head of cow, and then you see one cow crossroad. All of them move, they just follow. And unfortunately, that's what we're teaching our children. They follow mentality. That let's just follow the crowd. And that's why when some of us come out and say, the way we were raised, have you sat down to think about it? Was this really the best way? Do you know why you are actually still arguing whether you should do intentional parenting or not? Is the inability to think independently. Oh, yes. Because you are used to doing what is there, out there. The follow mentality. Follow the crowd. Everybody says, oh, we come up and then we quote some of the scriptures. None of us have actually really sat down to really understand some of the scriptures we quote. We quote them because somebody has quoted it and run off with it. Have we really sat down to really think about it? To really even sit down and say, oh, Holy Spirit, interpret this scripture for me? No, we don't. Because we are raised with a head mentality. everywhere, never be different. Wherever it is that people are going, please go with them. Whatever it is that happen in this place, please make sure that you are there. The herd mentality. And then we end up raising them with that mentality. They follow the crowd. And even as adults, they struggle with decision making. They stay stuck in uncomfortable, bad situations because they don't know how to be free and think on their own. One of the best things my own father, one of the best gifts he gave us, was to tell us that you're not a tree when you're uncomfortable in a place you work. And when I teach my children about, decisions in making friendship, a lot of us are stuck in bad relationships because we don't know how to think independently. So when I talk about relationships, I am very big on relationships. Of course, if you follow me on social media, you see that I talk about every form of relationship. I pay attention to my relationships, my marriage relationship, my relationship with my children, my relationship with my friends, my mentors is a core for me. Because when God said be fruitful, God meant be relational. So if you want to be fruitful, you need to be relational. So if you're not relational, you're going to see yourself stuck in a place, because we are created a relational being. God created us to interact, to connect, to live in communities. Like Pastor Siri, we say community is actually the answer to a lot of things. So I believe a lot in relationships. However, I believe in healthy relationships, and I pay attention to learn what is required for me to make a relationship healthy. And many of us are, so whenever I share about relationship, all right, and I share about relationships, people come and say, oh, this person betrayed me. Oh, this person, is because this person, did this to me. And I was there for a long time. It is your inability to think that kept you in that place. Trust me. I shared about mentorship a few days ago, and I said that mentorship trumps experience. So if you're going to just go on to become, work with your experience, you might even die experiencing, but learning by your own experience. All right. So, I had to go and, I was looking at the comments that people made. Somebody now said, oh, be careful when you're choosing all these mentors. I chose one, that one almost killed me, and blah, 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 blah. For the time that I was there, I smiled and I responded, it is your inability to understand decision-making skills. That's why you got stuck. And when you realized that you were stuck, you couldn't work, because you haven't learned to make decisions. See, the result of bad choices, every time you make a bad choice, it simply tells you that you have not learned how to make good decisions. That's the truth. And part of making decisions and making bad choices is that you also take responsibility. So when I make a bad choice, which I do sometimes, one of the places where I have found myself is a place of owning that decision. That's what tells me that decision-making skill has been learned. I own it with my full chest, like they say in Nigerian Palace. I own it. I tell myself, yes, I made this decision, and I will take responsibility for this decision. Let me give you an interesting flip. We grew up hearing most of the parents, I didn't have that kind of parent anyway, who told us that somebody was doing them something in the village, that's why they were not progressing. We see a lot of that happening. And then we grew up with all of those mentality. The mentality that, oh, it has to be somebody doing me. Oh, it has to be, we saw people around us do that a lot, even if you didn't experience it. Like me, my parents weren't that way, but I saw relatives, cousins, who opined that it was one uncle somewhere that did something. Don't get me wrong. I understand the place of spiritual, being a spiritual being and all of that. But I also understand the place of ability, to make choices. And many of the times we were raised in a place where we're taught not to take responsibility for anything, our actions, because incidentally our parents unknowingly, unintentionally taught us not to take responsibility for our actions. I'll give you a very simple example. Your mother is very angry with you. Something has happened. She's upset from the office. She comes home and then everywhere is scattered. And then she starts screaming and all of that. And then when you say, mommy, easy now, he says, it's you people that is always making me angry. So for you, you were taught, you were programmed to have somebody to blame for everything that befalls you. So there's a blame culture that we have, and that blame culture is coming from the place of inability to think. Till today, we're still blaming the colonial masters. And we haven't been able to actually sit back to ask ourselves, why are we where we are? Why can't we begin to pull ourselves out of this place? So we have some skewed, programs that have been put in our head. I like the way Stephen Akintayo says it. Somewhere deep down in the mind of an African person is that poverty is good. I'm not going to go into that. But that's the truth. All right. So it makes you humble, it makes you less of, it just makes you go to heaven somewhere. When we read the scriptures, we want to be the man who was the poor man who was taking food from the rich man who went to heaven. I always, one of my friends will say, why have you not thought of being the rich man who went to heaven with the right thing to do? There are just too many things in our head, and these all come from the place of how we were programmed. And I'm not talking to everybody. I know that if I'm talking to you, you understand exactly what it is that I'm saying. So even as adults, you get stuck. You struggle with decision making. You get stuck. You're uncomfortable in a place you have been taught, because somebody have always told you how to think. All right, somebody have always told you what to think. You were not taught how to think. So when you are there, you are still looking for somebody to come and tell you what to think. When you don't raise independent thinkers, they learn control in the wrong way. And that's why our parents were actually very controlling. They were not thinking. That's the truth. They were raised for survival. They were not raised for fulfillment. So everything they knew was, how do we survive? And of course, that was passed on to how they even parented. So it was about survival. So you learn control the wrong way. So all you know is, copy and paste. That's all. And why you must, if you don't raise independent thinkers, number two, you end up raising children who lack confidence. Now, children who lack confidence, they prefer to be submissive and they're afraid of leadership. Even in our, inner circle program, some parents, when they just come in, they're not able to, lead a group. They're not able to, say anything. They're not able to. And then you hear things like, that's who I am. I just don't like being out there. I don't like, leading and all of that. No. Most of it is because most of us were not raised, we're raised not to make decisions. We're afraid of making decisions. You're afraid of actually being able to make mistakes and own it, because we've been taught that mistakes were wrong. Meanwhile, mistakes are actually great tools to actually be able to raise an independent thinker. I hope you're following me, and I hope you are catching the drift. You can see that this topic is actually a topic that is very dear to my heart, and I'm just talking and going. I'm talking out of my head, and I'm just talking. And it's something that we need to really pay attention to. Another reason why you must raise independent thinkers, or why if you don't raise independent thinkers, they get into bad systems. They get into bad company. And when a child gets into bad company, the problem is that they make wrong choices to fit in. So your child can't think. Your child is being bullied. Most children who are being bullied can't think for themselves. It's a flaw. When your child is being bullied, is a flaw in how you have raised the child. And if you find your child at some point, your child is always, being bullied, cannot stand up and all of that, it is a flaw. It's something you need to sit back and begin to think, what skill does my child lack to be able to actually stand up for themselves? All right. I said, number one, they learn control. Number two, they lack confidence. So they prefer to be submissive, fear, they're afraid of leadership, they're afraid of taking, stuff to do, because they're afraid of decision making. You would think that, that fear is coming from the place of, I just don't like being out there. No, the fear many of the times, because even introverts, who are raised to be independent thinkers, can be amazing. So it's not about being an extrovert or being an introvert. They're two different things. And I said the third one is that they get into bad company. They make wrong choices to fit in. Because when they are inside that bad company, they can't think for themselves. Somebody will need to be thinking for them. So they just follow. Everything that person says, they just follow. All right. And this is why lack of independent thinking is bad for your child. And all this policing that we do for our children, the results is going to show soon. You police your child to go everywhere. You know, your child is just everything. Oh, you tell me, oh no, my children cannot, make decisions on their own. I've said it before. You have a 7-year-old, you're lacing the 7-year-old's shoe. You're giving them a bag. You're choosing what they will wear. You're teaching them what to think, not how to think. Now, how to think for an independent thinking child, when you're on that journey, is to say, this is what you need to do wear when the weather is so and so place. This is what you need to wear when you're going to church. This is what you need to wear. This is the kind of dressing. So your child comes to their wardrobe and looks at that wardrobe and thinks, I am going to school today. What is the most appropriate thing to wear? That's why even till today, most of us do not know what is appropriate in occasions. Oh yeah, you just wear because somebody have always made those choices, and then you just say, oh, that's what people are wearing, and then you just head mentality. You just wear it and then you fly off. You go to a school, you see parents coming to pick their children, they are practically half naked, and you're wondering. Let's even assume that that's how you dress, and is that the appropriate way to dress in that environment at that time? Lack of independent thinking. So another thing is that they get stuck in uncomfortable position in bad relationships because they can't think. They get stuck. They get stuck because every time they're coming to come and tell them, oh, this is what you need to do. So when people tell me, oh, the woman has been in a bad relationship, she doesn't know how to leave, it's not so easy, I smile. No, it's not so easy because they were not raised to think for themselves. Yes, it's head mentality. That's why it's really not so easy. And I get that. Because that's how the society has actually been programmed, to because they are used to being told what to do, how, so when they need to save themselves, they don't know how to make tough decisions, or choices. All right? They don't know how to make tough decisions and choices because those decisions can be tough. Life can be tough. You need to teach your children to know when to remove themselves in the toughest of the moments. Currently, I'm working with my daughter on a particular issue, and I said to her, I said, part of knowing that you can think for yourself is that you are able to work in the most difficult situations ever. That's it. Independent thinking. You are able to work in toxic relationships. I was having a conversation with a friend, and the friend said to me, when you make a decision, when you work, you just work. You analyze the situation well. You are able to say, this is it, and this is why I need to do this, and you work. When you raise an independent thinker, you are at an advantage. Now, why are you an advantage? Number one, they make the right life choices many of the times. See, the problem we are having today in marriage is not just that the marriage institution, oh, men are this, women are, it's because we are also raising people who do not understand who they are, who cannot make right choices for themselves. I've seen it firsthand. And usually when parents get into the inner circle, after about 6 months, they are asking themselves, where have I been? Because we're teaching you, how to actually begin to piece things together yourself. So I usually say that the intentional parenting journey makes you a thinking parent. And this morning I was on my intentional parenting journey with a different parent. This morning we were live with Brenda, who is a yada, a TIP parent. And one of the things she said is, in this system, you're giving principles and you're allowed to think. So people think that, oh, what you're thinking, you're telling people this is how they must go. No, what we're teaching is giving you principles, templates for you to develop and think for yourself. Because life is about principles. You get the principles and then you run with them. Now, independent thinkers, they make right life choices, like spouses. A lot of the wrong spousal choices is because the people who are making the choices cannot think. That's why. That's one. Number two, they don't worry about fitting in. So there's this thing about fitting in. See, independent thinkers are always, you can pick them out when you see them. So people who can fit in, all right, all of the time, they're trying to, you're trying so hard to fit into, something, to fit into, no. A lot of independent thinkers, people who can think independently, they don't worry about how they need to fit in, how they need to, be part of the head. No, 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 no. How they need to be part of the head. No, they don't need to be part of the head. What they need to do is actually to be them. And so independent thinkers, when you raise an independent thinker, the child understands who they are and do not need validation to live for them. I remember recently somebody reached out to me and said, where you are in the society, you need to really wear weave-ons, and so that people will look at you a certain way if you don't wear weave-on. I'm like, whoa. that was, that was like, yay, like really? I said to the person, I've actually gone past, I've always never done things that is normal. All right? How things that, that's how it is. That's how everybody's doing it. So I asked person, so if I wear the weave on, what happens? Then I will become a different version of Wendy Ologe, look nice. Yeah, don't get me wrong. Looking good is good. Do not get me wrong. But some of us are very comfortable being different. Comfortable, what I call comfortable in my skin. Is wearing a weave on wrong? No, it is not. It is not. It's just about you, getting to a point where it's not about, you don't need to fit into a particular, societal whatever, all right, for you to now believe that, oh, you can really do something and all of that. If you're not ready to think differently, then you become like others. You become like every other person. And you become like whoever, that you're raising. Now, number three, they understand responsibility. Now, most of us, I said that before, we're not raised to take responsibility. Things happen, we're constantly looking for who to blame. Constantly. And recently we were teaching, I shared the story in my book, How to Raise an Independent Thinking Child. That book is out in a few weeks and pre-order currently on. That's one book you should never miss, you should never miss following or reading. All right, currently we're doing a promo on 3 of my new books coming out. How to Love Your Child More, Raising the Independent Thinking Child, and Sex Educate Your Child Like a Pro Volume 2. You haven't read it before. If you have Sex Educate Your Child Like a Pro, is Volume 1. This is Volume 2. And we're putting it out there, and we are putting everything together. So instead of 15,000, you get to pay 9,500 naira. So you get all of the books, they're on pre-order, all right, very important, and then you begin to run. So in that book, I share the story of what happened between my son and I, and where he had chosen a tour to go to. And then he got there, and then he realized that it was during summer, and he realized that, oh, I didn't like the place and all of that. We had given them the opportunity to make those decisions themselves, and he did. And then he wanted to come and put the blame on his father, saying that, oh, it was daddy that, encouraged me. And on that day, I remember that we had a master class on taking decisions yourself. A complete master class. And we said to our son, if you must strive, then you must learn to own your decisions even when you have made a mistake. You must, learn to own your decisions even when you have made a mistake. And that, taught him a huge lesson. So, yes, that decision was not the best of the decision he should have been making at that point, but we said something to him. All you need to do is to say, I made this decision and I'm fine with it. And I'm going to take responsibility for the outcome of that decision. That's what raising an independent thinking child is. All right. So if you want to pay for the 3 books, all right, I'm going to put it on my screen. and um, you would also be able to see the link in case if you prefer to pay with your card. If you're outside of Nigeria, please pay using please pay using Amazon. All right. Love Your Child More is already on Amazon. How to love your child more. Practical steps to love your child more. It is already on Amazon. We're going to get the rest of them, all on Amazon before, what next week runs out. Unfortunately, we can't do pre-order on Amazon. It's on our platform. Is a second, this thing platform. So, but the ones that we can do pre-order in Nigeria, and then we're able to give you this rebate. So instead of 15,000, you get to pay 9,500, right? Am I correct? 9,500 for all of the three books. And if you're looking for how all you need to do is to screenshot this and make your payment. And please note, we have freebies for the first 1,000 people, and we currently have over 800 people that have ordered this book. The moment we get to 1,000 people, we can't afford to give everybody a freebie. Trust me, it's a lot of cost on us, and we're doing it because we really, really want to do this. Okay, so please, if you want to be part of that, part of it is that you're going to get the free workbook of Love Your Child More. All right, there's a workbook that comes with that book. But if you eventually go ahead not to pre-order, all right, that workbook, you would get that workbook, you pay for it. It's 5,000 naira, and we will be glad if you pay for it. Trust me, we need all the money you can think about. Okay, right now, we'll be so glad. Okay, if you prefer to pay for it, we'll be very, very glad. And then you also get master classes. You will also get a rebated, amount. After pre-order, you get to pay 5,000 for each of the books, and then that's what you actually get to pay for them. All right. So our parents need to also take responsibility in raising an independent thinking child. Oh, yes. All right. So it's important that you understand responsibility. You understand what responsibility is. And our children watch us when we take responsibility. I remember one of those days I had made a very foolish mistake. Foolish, completely foolish. And then, my son says to me, mommy, you should have done this in a different way. And I said, yeah, I wish I did, but I didn't. And I was trying to have a conversation with him, and I said to him, I made a mistake, but I'm taking responsibility for it. If I had thought of it in this way, I would have taken this decision. And that is my fault. Now, independent thinking doesn't say you will not make mistakes. Independent thinking says that when you make mistakes, you see them as a building block. That's what it is. And that's how you teach a child to actually begin to make decisions at the point where those decisions really, really, matter, and take responsibility for them. A child makes a mistake, and it starts with how helping our children take responsibility when they do the things that are wrong at home. So instead of demonizing mistakes, why not begin to take it from the place where you teach your children how to take responsibility, for instance, for pouring water on the floor, instead of beating them for it. Why not teach them how to take responsibility for it? All right. Unfortunately, we rescue our children from all of their, mistakes, and yet we say, oh, we're beating them. No, we punish them. We punish them. They punish them for doing what is wrong. We don't discipline them. That's why when a child does something in school, you come back, you say, I've beaten the child. Please forgive my child. Don't punish them. Don't let the child not go through disciplinary action. It's interesting how we do that. Then we teach our children not to take responsibility for their actions when we do all of that. The next one is that they learn empathy. Most people who can think for themselves also know and understand that life isn't about control. It's about, being able to accommodate every other person. They learn empathy, not control. The next thing is that they are also more trustworthy. People who are independent thinkers are more trustworthy. Oh, yes, they are. They're able to build a trust system. They are able to, do quite a lot. People who cannot think for themselves, you can't trust them because you do not know what can happen. Very important. You don't know what can happen. The next one is that they live value-based lifestyle. Many of us don't live value-based lifestyle. See, many of the lifestyle that we live is a lifestyle of let us. It's not about your value. There are too many things that I will not do, not because I don't want to follow people and do. No, it's because I am driven by value and not just by whatever. So instead of rules, part of what I wrote in that book, raising an independent thinking child, is instead of rules, you instead of instead of rules, I will answer that, Edith, and I'm going to round off and answer question. Instead of rules, you teach your children values. And once you get into the inner circle, the first thing you begin to learn is how to live a value-based system of parenting, where you're using your values as your building block. Because values are the foundation of every home. All right? Values are the foundation of every home. So in the inner circle, you are taught your values stand first before any other thing. So you now put structures where your children can follow these values. See, when your children assimilate values, they behave, they fare better than just rules. See, rules are just for obeying. Values are much more internalized. When a child can internalize value, they own it. It becomes their thing. It doesn't now become, it's not because my parents said. I see a lot of children make decisions. I said, oh, my parents said I should not. My parents said I should not. Don't get me wrong. It is okay for you to listen to your parents, but it's very key for you to think. Very key. All right. And then they are not people's pleasers. When you raise children who are independent thinkers, they don't please people. They learn to be able to actually say no. Many people who are not independent thinkers can't say no. You feel bad when you say no. I know when I was teaching the parents in the inner circle this year about saying no, and a lot of them were like, I cannot say no to my pastor, so that I will not be able to, it will look somehow. Oh, when they tell me to take leadership, I find out that you're just pleasing people. You become a people's pleaser. So you can't really stand up and say, no, I won't be able to do this. No is a complete statement. Somebody asked me for something recently and I said no. The person said, is it just no you're going to say? I said, do I need an explanation for saying no? You teach your children that no is a complete statement. Now, there is a place of being able to teach them how to say no. I agree with you. But then again, the first thing you need to teach your children is how to say no to you. How to say no to you. Very interesting. A lot of parents don't like to hear in this part. If your children cannot say no to you in your house, they can't say no to any other person outside of your house. That's why an uncle can molest your child and tell your child that they are going to kill him if they say, and your child will believe it. It's interesting. Wonderful. When parents tell me that, oh, they were threatening the child, and your child never mentioned to you, then there's a problem with the parenting parenting system as a whole. That means you've lost connection completely. So that child does not even trust you enough to believe. They believe somebody outside more than they believe you. You should be worried. In fact, when a child is molested and the reason why the child didn't talk is because the child was threatened, the parent should be more worried than the child. Because it means that you have raised somebody that cannot trust you. I keep saying that authority is trust and respect. Authority is not force and control. The moment you lose trust, the moment you lose respect, you have lost authority. You have lost authority. You must accept saying no. You see, saying no, you must accept it as part of your process. If not, you raise a child who is a zombie. And your child should be able to trust you to the point where if somebody threatens them, they believe that, no, I have parents. I remember, growing up, people were like, oh, all these wayo people that tell you if you use money, they change. I was only 12 or 13. I can't remember. I had gone to the market and they told me, oh, if you don't bring it, we're going to kill you. We will do this to you and all of that. In my mind, I said, when I have my mother, I went home and I told my mother, I said, they said I should go and bring so and so money. We laughed because I could trust my parents. One of the gifts that our father gave us was the ability to say no to him. My father was he's not a perfect father, but trust me, we had a lot of button of heads. My father would say something and say, what you think, bring your strong reason and convince me otherwise. You must get to the point where you want to actually put yourself in a place where your children can say, this thing you have said, they will do it respectfully. You teach them how to. And that's why honor trumps obedience in your parenting journey. I'm not going to be teaching that. Honor as a skill is one It's one master class. The parents in the inner circle will tell you one master class that when you take it, your life will change. As soon as you enter, and it's not a public master class, unfortunately, it's only for parents in the inner circle. Because if I teach it publicly, you're not going to understand it. It's not, I'm just trying to really, be sensitive to, the level of knowledge that we have people going through and all of that. Honor over obedience. And if you teach it, then saying no, your children being able to say no to you comes a lot more easier than it should. A lot more easier. And that's the difference. That's where, the difference comes. So your children they're thinking beings. They're thinking beings. I remember one time my father was saying that, we were not supposed to, visit a particular family. And we asked the reasons. His reasons were not cogent. We told him, we gave him reasons why his reasons were not, cogent. And he said to us, oh yeah, prove it. And then we proved it to him. Over the years, that decision, my father would say, was, you guys made a better decision than I would have made at that time. Stop thinking you know everything. You don't. You're only one human being. You don't. It's actually a fallacy to think that because you're a parent, you know everything. And that is the same I know everything that keeps you in a place where you don't seek help. And one of the things that attributes of an independent thinker is ability to seek help, to learn what they don't know. Because an independent thinker wants to think for themselves. They go to find knowledge for themselves. So that's why they believe that they need to learn, they need to do this, they need to do that. They need to continually actually push. They need to actually continually push. Another thing that happens to independent thinkers is that they are never stuck in an appropriate situation. Never ever. An independent thinker know how to analyze the situation and take themselves out of that situation. Will you enter bad situations? Yes, but you don't get stuck. When I talk about, my journey to creating circles that work, I remember that one of those days I shared, somebody said, are you trying to say you've never made mistakes, having friends, choosing friends? I told the person I have. But one advantage I have over you is that I know how to walk away. I walked away because, again, I was told that I'm not a tree. If I find myself in an uncomfortable place, your legs will move. So I walk away. I walk away in circles that I need to fight to fit in. Why? I walk away. I don't need to be there. I don't need anybody to assert me, really. I don't need to. And let me say this to fathers. If you're a father listening to me, the only way your child, your girl child, is going to confidently speak this way is if you are in their lives. That's the only way. People have asked me, so what plans to create a strong male character figure in the life of that child? An uncle, a family friend, the pastor, whatever. But of course, you need to carefully choose that as well. So some of these things also, they're holistic. Parenting is, takes you through a journey. All right. The last one is independent thinkers. Most independent thinkers grow up to become leaders. Oh, yes. They grow up to become leaders. All right. And they grow up to become people who can lead, who follow from one point to. So you see independent thinkers, you see a lot of the people who are taught to think differently, to think independently. They are leader. Now, being a leader doesn't mean that you're a president or you're a governor. That's not what those are not leaders. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about in your small affairs, in the systems. Being a leader doesn't mean holding an office. Leadership is a skill everybody need, really. And it's very important that we begin to actually, pay attention to most of these things that, we are saying. And it's very, very key. Somebody asked me a question that I would like to answer. Thank you so much for joining me. If you have questions, you can put them in the comment section. Remember that you can get our books, all right? The books that are currently on pre-order. For 9,500, so 15,000 naira. And we have 800 pre-orders as of today. We hit 1,000, believe you me, please. We will not do the all of the paparazzi that come with pre-orders, the masterclass you're going to access and all of the things, So somebody said, Coach, are you implying that we are casualties of our parents' poor choices? Are you saying we should take responsibility for our actions? Please explain. In fact, that's the word. That's the word. We are really casualties of our parents' poor choices. Today, I was on the phone with a friend, And I said to her, I said, parenting advantage, and there's also parenting disadvantage. Some of the things that happen to most of our parents is affecting us today, except we are thinking differently. Yes, because most of us have assimilated, have been programmed to think, except you learn something that will override that thing you know. If not, that program remains there. And because of those experiences that we have, which is tinted, from those lenses, all right, you find out that those experiences limit us. Oh, yes. The experience of how you grew up, the things that happened to you, how maybe you must have heard that somebody killed your father in the village, and that experience can actually rob you of opportunities. Experiences, very important for us to check. So if you're saying the choices you make today will affect you and your generations to come. I keep saying it. Legacies are not in your child. You are your own legacy. So the choices you're making, the legacy to inherit your children is you, not your child. Not your child. And it starts with how you're living your life, what you're doing today, and what you're leaving behind and all of that. So when we talk about choices that you're making, the choices our parents made brought us here. We are all a product of our choices, habits. That's what the future is about. The choices that we're making today will take our parents to where they're going, our children to where they're going. A friend of mine says that parenting is war, and that when you get into the battlefield, that is where your parents finish. That's where you begin from. The day he explained it, it was so profound. He said, it's where your parents finish in the war. That's where you begin from. There are some wars that my children will never fight. They have no business fighting it. I've fought it. There are some wars that I didn't have to fight because my parents have fought it. There are some wars that their own children will not have to fight. Let me put it in simple terms. If you begin to if you begin to work today, for instance, you start working, your parents never had a home, they were living from one place to another. Then the first thing you needed to do was to build a home for them, and then get them comfortable. And then imagine the other parent who already had a home, they're already comfortable, and all you need to do is just to start and fly on your own. You're not at the same place. There are people who their parents have built platforms for, in quotes. These platforms are not necessarily money. These platforms can be the training that you're giving them. For me, that is the training that they're having. The advantage, that parenting advantage that we're talking about. There's a parenting advantage of wealth, there's a parenting advantage of skills, there's a parenting advantage of too many things. So it's that parenting advantage that we're actually having conversations on today. So what will be our last conference was the parenting advantage. You want to go and listen to that conference. It's free on our YouTube channel. You want to just search it out. Intentional Parenting Conference 2022. It was mind blowing. The theme was the parenting advantage. So that's what we're sharing. The parenting advantage. How do you begin to raise an independent thinking child? Now that's the question, and our time is out. I have shared with you tools. I shared with the parents in the inner circle some of these tools, and of course, when we now, when we also get to the inner circle for the people who are in the waiting list for 2023, you will learn a lot about independent thinking child, and you will learn why I say that your children need to gain skills, have skills. It's easier to raise a skilled child than raise an unskilled child. All right. If you have questions for me, you can put it right in the comment section. I hope you enjoyed this session, and I hope that you shared with a friend somewhere. And thank you so much for joining me again and again. Thank you so much for being here. I really, really, really do appreciate you. It is 1 hour of my time, of your time and mine. And you guys have done well. All right. So this is it. You want to learn how to raise an independent thinking child? Look at my screen. I have a book called Raising the Independent Thinking Child. It's going to be live on Amazon soon. If you're watching me outside of Nigeria, if you're watching me in Nigeria, you get the opportunity to pay 9,500 or 15,000 instead of 15,000 naira. Um, if you can, if you want to All right. Right. How do I start building structures from, create the values and put it in a system? Now, structures are not built in vacuums. You need to build a foundation for you to build the structure. And Chika, if you're hey, is going to learn that you did. You need to begin. Believe you me, there's a lot to learn. There's a lot. Too much. Thank you, Prince. I sincerely appreciate this. So that's just. I would recommend that you get a copy of my books. All right. So that being published soon. I've written about paper covers, 10 books on Amazon. I've got correct while resolving a game change. I'm not saying it to you because you're listening to me, but because they are. Okay? We have Sex Educate Your Child Like a Post, Volume 1. This is volume coming. See? Of the book, including the pre-order book. All right, the costs. All right, okay, the cost is 39,500. Yeah, 39,500. If you want to get all my books, they are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. The three new ones will make it 10 copies of the books that I've written in hard copies. And if you pay 39,500, you get every single one of them in your library. And part of our mandate is to ensure that parents are reading parenting books and learning from them. When I started this journey, people said, oh, people don't read books and all of that. Today, we have an army of read on it. Trust me, can that is one thing. Please, what's the conference thing? The conference was sometimes all right. It is annual conference. Just TIP annual conference. You will see the past 4 years of TIP annual conference, and you would actually want to, be there. Ini said that conference brought me into the inner circle. Amazing. Thank you so much for all you said. Thank you for all what you said is so true. Thank you so much, everybody. And for those who somebody was asking me about marriage and all of that, I'm not a marriage counselor for the records. My husband is. He has books that also talks on marriage, like building your marriage. And there's another one, I think is here, the husband manual. All right, we're currently reading the husband manual for level 2 in the inner circle. Amazing read. All right, and for level 1, so we read one book per month. One of the things that the inner circle brings to you is the joy of reading, the joy of learning. And you will move from where you are to where you'll be shocked at what will happen to you. If you haven't booked a slot to be in the inner circle yet, or if you haven't paid to be in the inner circle, because we're starting on the 1st of December, there's no booking slot. And once you don't come in, you can start, you can wait for the next inner circle program, which is 1st of December 2023. That's against 2024. So the year in the academy starts on the 1st of December every year. Every year, 1st of December, that's the day that we actually start our year. So the last month in the academy is this month. So welcome to November. It's so good to have you in November. And as we round off the year in the academy to start our new year on the 1st of December, we welcome you to take stock in this last month. Thank you so much for being here, and see you again at the cathedral on the 2nd, on Tuesday at 2 p.m. But hey, we're running a series, My Intentional Parenting Journey. You can find it right on YouTube, and you can go through My Intentional Parenting Journey. These are parents sharing their journey, about them being in the inner circle and what it has done for them. Not me talking, not me talking. These are parents actually talking and sharing their experiences. Bye, and see you again tomorrow morning at 8. And have an amazing week ahead of you.